Hello, everyone. I'm extremely happy to be with you today, moderating this session on social and solidarity economy in the MENA region with all the esteemed panelists. This session will be recorded, and we are starting now with Kristina Pronerova.
Hello, everyone.
Kristina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will just be brief. This webinar is organized as part of a civil society facility for the Mediterranean, which is a new regional program financed by the European Commission, by the DG NEAR. And in order to give you an overview of the program and why this webinar is happening, I will just say a few words about the facility, but then leave the floor to the speakers knowledgeable about this topic. The Civil Society Facility for the Mediterranean is an umbrella program which comprises of a technical assistance contract, but also a framework partnership with 6 regional organizations. And you can see their names here: Euromed Rights, Euromed Human Rights Foundation, Arab Reform Initiative, the Norwegian Refugee Council, COSPA, and Minority Rights Group. These 6 organizations have been selected in a call for proposals last year to become the partners of the European Commission for a structured dialogue with civil society in the southern neighborhood, so in the southern Mediterranean countries. Through them, we will try to convey messages that the civil society wants to give to European Union about the situation on the ground, and also messages about the programming and the policies of the EU. This structured dialogue has existed since the year 2012, and we started a new phase in January 2023 with these new partners. And in the new phase, we're trying to have a closer cooperation with the delegations and the national dialogues, but also we try to have more public events open to anyone wanting to join. So this webinar is actually part of these public events open to anyone interested to join, and it will cover the thematic of social dialogue, because this is one of the topics covered under this year's structured dialogue. The other topics that will be covered in the other topics that will be covered in other seminars are also environment and climate, migration, good governance, human rights and democracy, and other economic cooperation aspects. Besides webinars, there will be other activities held under the civil society facility and as part of the structured dialogue. One of them is, for example, national meetings that our framework partners will be holding in each of the countries, but also thematic group meetings and other activities. The framework partners, the 6 organizations I have mentioned at the start, will also carry out sub-granting or financial support to third parties in order to strengthen the local civil society organizations in the southern neighborhood countries. They will also organize trainings and coaching, and will prepare for the structured dialogue. So we'll gather input from other organizations into the structured dialogue. So this webinar focuses mainly on social economy and on the situation, or on the trends in social economy in the southern neighborhood, because this was selected as a subtopic that we will deal with during this year under the economic cooperation theme. And I have here my colleagues both from the European Union, but then we have representatives from civil society who will try to speak about this. I'm very much looking forward to getting the information from their side, and I hope you will enjoy the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristina. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here today to unveil the multifaceted fabric of the social and solidarity economy with all of you. Today, we are gathered virtually, yet connected profoundly with a shared purpose, knitting the threads of innovation, inclusivity, and resilience into the economic landscape of the MENA region. Social and solidarity economy is not only an economic model, it's a philosophy, a commitment to interweaving business with ethics, profit with purpose, and growth with equity. In the beautiful and historically rich terrains of the MENA region, where traditions run deep and innovation springs, the SSE stands as a bridge connecting our cherished legacies to promoting horizons, local intricacies to global advancements, and individual efforts to collective triumphs. Our esteemed panelists today are not just academics or professionals, they are the custodians of the bridge, with hands molded by experience and insights curved from the relentless pursuit of social justice. They will guide us through an exploration of SSE's potential to transform economies while nurturing societies. We embark today on a journey not of passive learning, but of active discovery, and I invite everyone here in this session to be sharing the questions even when the panelists are speaking, and I'll be taking those questions and asking them to the panelists, and let's keep this session of enlightenment and empowerment as interactive as possible. We will start with our first panel with on contextualizing SSE in the MENA region, the main challenges and opportunities, with Mahdi Bakoush, the director, a perspective from of Shanti. He will be offering a perspective from Maghreb. He will be speaking in French, and you have the option of 3 languages, English, Arabic, and French, to choose from. And Gilbert Doumet, the managing partner of Beyond the Group, a perspective from Mashriq. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Ale. I will speak in French, as you said. Je suis Mehdi Bakou, je suis le directeur de l'association Shanti, qui œuvre en Tunisie depuis 2016 au soutien des acteurs de l'économie sociale et solidaire, donc à la fois en offrant des services d'appui, d'accompagnement, de financement, de mise au réseau, mais aussi nous implémentons nous-mêmes nos propres initiatives économiques, notamment dans le secteur de l'artisanat, du tourisme, des services à la personne, en essayant justement de tester ces principes et ces valeurs de l'économie sociale et solidaire dans la réalité de nos contextes, parfois challengeants et difficiles. Donc, on a eu la chance de travailler avec une grande diversité d'acteurs, de partenaires, bien sûr en Tunisie, mais aussi en Méditerranée, au Maroc, en Algérie, au Liban. Et donc, j'aimerais aujourd'hui vous faire ce retour d'expérience et essayer de partager avec vous quelques enjeux, quelques défis sur le secteur, bien sûr en particulier en Tunisie, mais tout en essayant d'étendre un petit peu à la réalité aussi des pays voisins. Donc, le premier constat qu'on fait, c'est que la thématique de l'économie sociale et solidaire, elle est vraiment devenue omniprésente ces 10 dernières années dans l'écosystème. Il y a un discours ambiant dans les universités, chez les bailleurs de fonds, dans la société civile, parfois dans le secteur privé et aussi dans le monde politique qui prennent cette thématique de l'économie sociale et solidaire. Et ce discours ambiant cache des réalités parfois très diverses et je dirais même parfois contradictoires et qui sont importantes aussi d'éclaircir aujourd'hui en tant que professionnels et défenseurs, j'ai envie de dire aussi, de ce secteur. Pour parler un petit peu des enjeux d'aujourd'hui, je pense qu'il est important de revenir aussi sur les différentes sources ou les différents mouvements historiques qui ont convergé aujourd'hui dans cet agrégat un petit peu hétérogène d'acteurs. Tout d'abord, dire que dans les pratiques traditionnelles au Maghreb, il y a des pratiques qu'on pourrait qualifier d'économie sociale et solidaire aujourd'hui. On pense notamment à la pratique de la touisa chez les agriculteurs. D'ailleurs, c'est une pratique commune chez tous les amazirs du Maghreb, donc des dynamiques de travail collectif et communautaire qui n'étaient pas basées sur une logique marchande, mais qui permettaient de mettre l'intérêt général de la communauté au devant de la scène, et aussi des pratiques historiques, notamment dans le tissu urbain. Dans la Médina de Tunis, on a aujourd'hui des vestiges de ce qui était avant ce qui était peut-être l'ancêtre des fondations, avec des activités dans les fondours de stock des commerçants qui permettaient de prendre en charge dans le besoin. Donc, on a cette pratique historique qui est toujours présente malgré tout dans les pratiques traditionnelles, qui ensuite a vu dans les années 60 en Tunisie un mouvement qui a utilisé le vocable des coopératives et le vocable du collectivisme, qui a été mené par Ben Salah suite à la Révolution et qui a été un moment fort de pratique coopérativiste, mais qui malheureusement a eu en tout cas qui ne s'est pas concrétisé, qui a laissé un poids sur le vocable de l'économie sociale et solidaire qui est resté très prégnant aujourd'hui et qui peut même avoir un effet repoussoir et créer une certaine peur ou un certain rejet dans l'agriculture. Et enfin, on a le mouvement, en tout cas en Tunisie depuis 2011, de libération de la société civile et du mouvement associatif qui a laissé place à un mouvement de plus en plus dynamique. Ce qu'il faut retenir aussi, c'est que souvent, ce mouvement qui est dynamique et dans lequel nous, on se reconnaît, a quand même été porté très fortement par la coopération internationale. C'est-à-dire que c'est souvent, on n'a pas toujours des mouvements qui ont été portés par le bas, mais aussi des mouvements qui ont essayé d'être soutenus par le haut pour créer un petit peu cet écosystème. Et également un discours qui est très axé sur l'entrepreneuriat classique, dans une approche aussi qui est assez libérale et parfois contradictoire aussi avec les valeurs de l'économie sociale et solidaire. Et donc, ce discours général sur l'entrepreneuriat a certes eu un effet levier très important pour entraîner parfois le mouvement de l'économie sociale et solidaire, mais a aussi créé une confusion assez forte chez les acteurs où on retrouve ce que je disais en introduction, cette confusion qui est parfois présente. Une des principales conséquences de ce discours, c'est que l'ESS est vu, notamment par les pouvoirs publics, comme un outil de résolution de la question du chômage, comme un potentiel de création d'activités. Certes, bien sûr, l'ESS a ce potentiel-là, mais ce n'est pas l'économie sociale et solidaire qui va porter seule la responsabilité de problèmes structurels très, très présents et très forts. Et cette vision uniquement sous l'axe de l'emploi efface quelque peu l'aspect transformateur, l'aspect d'une économie porteuse de changement et qui porte une alternative aussi du secteur économique. Et donc, on peut dire que parfois, le discours ambiant vient aseptiser ce qui devrait être l'énergie et les valeurs qui sont portées par les acteurs du terrain. Un point important en termes de challenge et qu'on retourne dans la discussion, c'est la question du cadre juridique et finalement de la construction de l'écosystème. Donc, en Tunisie, on a officiellement un cadre juridique depuis 2020, mais qui n'est pas encore qui n'est pas traduit par des décrets d'application qui nous permettent d'en profiter. Et au Maroc et en Algérie, il y a aussi disons, des textes qui régissent des entités, mais les projets de loi cadre sont en cours de création. Le processus qui a amené en Tunisie à la création d'un cadre juridique, il n'est pas né en 2020, bien sûr, il est le fruit de discussions importantes et de travaux qui ont mobilisé notamment les partenaires sociaux, l'UGTT, les syndicats, le dialogue aussi, un dialogue national avec différentes parties prenantes, et enfin l'aboutissement après avoir intégré l'ESS dans les stratégies de développement étatique. On va dire le point d'orgue, ça a été le vote de la loi en 2020, en plein confinement, en pleine pandémie, pour remettre aussi dans le contexte où on était dans une page optimiste, peut-être un petit peu idéaliste, où on était vraiment aussi dans cet état d'esprit après avoir vécu le choc du confinement et avoir été témoin du rôle primordial des acteurs de l'économie sociale et solidaire comme soutien aux personnes les plus vulnérables dans cette période de crise. Le vote de la loi a été vraiment un espoir important et qui offrait à la fois une définition du secteur, mais également une institutionnalisation du secteur, un point très important, avec aussi bien des piliers institutionnels portés par l'État, mais aussi la possibilité aux acteurs du terrain de créer des structures représentatives, la possibilité de créer une banque coopérative, la possibilité d'avoir des statistiques, puisque c'est une des choses qui manque énormément dans nos écosystèmes. Nous n'avons pas de statistiques, donc un code pour l'Institut national des statistiques. Et aujourd'hui, 3 ans après le tourment du Covid et après aussi les soubresauts politiques et les transitions qu'on vit actuellement en Tunisie, malheureusement, la concrétisation de ce texte de loi n'a pas encore été officialisée puisqu'on n'a aucun décret qui n'ont été implémentés jusqu'à aujourd'hui, plus de 3 ans après le vote de la loi. Mais les discours avec les différents ministères pour rester toujours optimistes, nous font espérer que les choses vont s'accélérer. Les enjeux qui sont cruciaux et qui sont à la fois des challenges, mais aussi des opportunités pour les acteurs d'ESS en Tunisie et au Maghreb, moi, j'en ai retenu 4 aujourd'hui à partager avec vous. Tout d'abord, je pense à la question du changement climatique. À titre personnel, pendant longtemps, je ne me suis pas du tout intéressé aux questions environnementales, mais aujourd'hui, le constat nous montre que nos pays, notamment au Maghreb et en Méditerranée, nous allons être parmi les premières victimes des conséquences des changements climatiques. Nous l'avons vu dans la question de l'eau tout l'été en Tunisie avec des coupures énormes qui remettent en cause les modèles de développement agricole, qui remettent en cause la façon d'utiliser, de développer les énergies. Et on a ici un vivier plutôt que ce soit un vivier qui va être pris par un secteur privé qui est intéressé par le côté lucratif, c'est aussi là une opportunité énorme à saisir par les communautés pour que les modèles de gestion durable des ressources soient liés avec les enjeux des territoires et les opportunités économiques à offrir pour les communautés qui y vivent. Un deuxième enjeu qui est transversal, je pense, au Maghreb, c'est la question de l'égalité homme-femme et comment est-ce que des structures d'économie sociale et solidaire peuvent offrir des modèles qui soient des vrais vecteurs de plus d'égalité et d'une meilleure d'un accès aux opportunités qui soit rendu égal pour les femmes. On voit aujourd'hui que l'accès au financement des femmes, il est problématique. Dans l'agriculture, la plupart des femmes en Tunisie, peut-être c'est le cas au Maghreb, ne possèdent pas la terre sur laquelle elles travaillent et donc rendent l'accès au financement et rendent l'accès aux opportunités beaucoup plus difficiles. Envisager des structures collectives de l'ESS pourrait permettre d'offrir notamment aux femmes les plus vulnérables dans les régions des opportunités. Il y a aussi la question de l'opportunité pour les jeunes et souvent le discours politique est tourné autour de cette vocation des jeunes. Encore faut-il imaginer des modèles qui soient vraiment créateurs d'opportunités pour les jeunes. Et là, ça nous montre aussi que dans nos pays, on peut aller au-delà des secteurs traditionnels de l'économie sociale et solidaire et aussi s'engager dans des secteurs avec une autre valeur ajoutée. Je pense notamment à tout ce qui est le travail IT, tous les jeunes ingénieurs, les développeurs, les graphistes, toute cette génération de jeunes diplômés talentueux qui travaillent souvent en sous-traitance pour l'économie mondialisée. On peut aussi ici imaginer des groupements collectifs qui puissent permettre à ces jeunes d'avoir des vraies opportunités dans leur carrière professionnelle. Et enfin, je pense que l'enjeu de l'entraide et de la coopération entre les réseaux de producteurs et d'acteurs au Maghreb, avec les amis marocains, algériens, là aussi, on a un enjeu qui est important. Pour terminer, quelques recommandations aussi suite à notre expérience de terrain. Tout d'abord, je pense qu'on a besoin de donner la parole aux acteurs qui sont dans le niveau de production. Et c'est vrai que moi, je suis ravi aujourd'hui de pouvoir échanger avec vous et de le faire avec les amis dans plein d'événements. Mais souvent, les personnes qui font l'économie sociale et solidaire, elles ne sont pas toujours au cœur du dialogue et au cœur des réflexions sur ce secteur-là. Et on essaie je vois Simone avec nous, avec COSPE en Tunisie, on essaye justement de mettre en place des espaces de dialogue et de travail où ces acteurs-là sont au cœur du discours. Il faut aussi qu'on réfléchisse à la taille critique du secteur de l'économie sociale et solidaire. Aujourd'hui, on nous maintient un petit peu dans le small is beautiful. Donc, on a des petits projets d'économie sociale et solidaire qui finalement, qui n'ont pas beaucoup de potentiel. On a besoin aussi de réfléchir à la taille critique. Comment est-ce que les organisations peuvent se développer, peuvent accéder à des marchés qui leur permettent vraiment d'avoir une durabilité économique. Et donc, ce dont on a besoin, c'est de lever le regard, ne pas regarder trop bas dans la chaîne de production. On n'est pas obligé d'avoir des coopératives d'agricultrices ou de producteurs, mais on peut avoir dans tous les secteurs de la chaîne de valeur et notamment dans les maillons qui produisent le plus de valeur ajoutée. C'est à ce niveau-là qu'on devrait investir pour avoir des projets d'économie sociale et solidaire qui puissent être des vrais moteurs et des vraies dynamiques d'une chaîne de valeur et embarquer avec eux, notamment les populations les plus vulnérables qui attendent de ce secteur un changement réel. Et puis enfin, je dirais que dans le climat de transition politique dans lequel on vit, l'économie sociale et solidaire, c'est aussi une opportunité de proposer un nouveau contrat social, un nouveau type de relation entre le secteur public et le secteur de l'économie sociale et solidaire, de réfléchir à des mécanismes de délégation de services publics où l'État puisse avoir des relations gagnant-gagnant avec les acteurs de l'économie sociale et solidaire pour la prise en charge, notamment des grands enjeux actuels qui ne sont pas adressées par le marché. Je pense notamment au vieillissement de la population. On a des enjeux d'avenir qui sont devant nous et on a besoin de services, de services à la personne, de travail et aussi, voilà. Et puis, finalement, vu que c'est la thématique aujourd'hui d'être à l'échelle MENA, cette recommandation toujours d'avoir aussi cette approche de réseau. Échangeons entre réseaux, malgré nos différences et malgré l'hétérogénéité parfois des contextes, d'avoir aussi cet échange à l'échelle méditerranéenne dans les deux rives de la Méditerranée pour essayer de répliquer les bonnes pratiques qui existent et enfin avoir un poids suffisamment fort pour peser dans les dialogues et dans les échanges. Merci, Alain.
Thank you, Mehdi. شكرا. We now go to Gilbert Doumit. The floor is yours. Sorry for all the audience, all the participants. There were some problems with the interpretation English and Arabic, and this is being fixed now with the technical team. Thank you for your patience. Go ahead, Gilbert. Thank you.
Thanks, Ala. Thanks, Mehdi. I think I will join Mehdi in many of the ideas he shared. So my name is Gilbert Doumit. I'm the managing partner of Beyond Group. We're an MENA EU company, consulting firm that's mission-driven, and we've been working in supporting the development of social economy, social entrepreneurship. I'll make a differentiation across the MENA region. And particularly, I've been invested in this for the last 15 years. Almost 10 years ago, I wrote an article in Stanford Social Innovation Review. It was about, it's an old practice, it's a new concept. Because I fully agree with Mehdi that the cultural dimension of our economies have always had a social dimension. So we see this in many rural areas. We also see it in cities where this sense of solidarity, the sense of social purpose of business and non-business entities is very present in our culture. And like it was an old practice, but it's a new concept. This whole social and economy, social and solidarity economy, social entrepreneurship, all those concepts seem new, but in fact, they're not in our practice. If I want to write an article today, I would call it old concept, because now it's 15 years ago, but old problems as well. So it feels like the SSE, the social and solidarity economy, is bearing the same challenges that our countries are facing. So I would say, and if I look back in studies that we've done in 2014, 18, 2023, it seems like it's the same problems over and over, but now they're more accentuated. I'll start with the positive lens to say, and I agree with Mehdi as well with another statement he made. If I look back 10 years ago, I was in Tunis, but also in Lebanon, in Jordan, when we used to talk about like social economy, it seemed like a new thing. So every time we started a meeting, a workshop, a conversation, we define it. We define what is social economy. We define what is social entrepreneurship. It's very interesting today that it's fully mainstreamed. And that's a very positive aspect because now it's being used by policymakers, by society actors, by academia. So I teach social entrepreneurship at university at USG. So 10 years ago, we were discussing what is it about. Now there are courses mainstreamed across different faculties. So I can see how this has evolved significantly the last 10 years. And I agree as well with Mehdi. Look, so I'm giving you 3 credits. I'm gonna diverge in a second. But also, it's very important to anchor this concept, also this policy level of social and solidarity economy in the global conversation. So if you look today, the G20 statement, there is a serious discussion about economic transformation, and instead of being driven by growth and GDP, it's driven by well-being. And that's also a new conversation at the level of Europe, where we're rethinking what should be the output of economy. And I think the MENA region can offer an excellent model for this, if we all get invested and work on this, to anchor the conversation and the policy level on the social economy as part of this economic transformation that Europe is trying to push for in certain spheres, of course, because I'm part of this conversation in one of on the think tank level to brief the G20, and there is a very serious discussion about what is the new economic model for the world, and I think the social economic model in the MENA region and how it's evolving could be anchored in this conversation. A third point I want to make on this as well, so what I said about, it seems now, when I look back, it used to be a new concept, now it's an old concept, it's old problems as well. But also the problems of the social economy sector is suffering from the same problems repeatedly, but now they're more accentuated. So if we look at the region now, inflation, many currencies have been devaluated, inequalities are increasing, poverty rates are increasing, state capacities, the fragility of the state is increasing, marginalization is increasing. So, and all this is affecting the social economic sector. And this is why my sense is, from the recent studies we did, is that it's the same problems, but those problems are higher challenges. And yes, it's very difficult to give any number, so I will not risk it. But it seems like, yes, there are some new players coming, but there are many players who are exiting the sector because they cannot afford it, either by shifting totally into a traditional business model or by exiting totally the sector. So I think this is where it's important to rapidly respond to the situation before we lose what has been built for the last 10, 15 years. To go back to a positive element. So for example, now on the policy level and legislation, we're seeing in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Tunisia, in Morocco, most countries now have this issue on their table, within parliaments, within government, within ministries. Something was almost a dream 10 years ago, which is a very positive thing. And yes, the dynamics around it are polarized between ideologies, left versus right. Is it social entrepreneurship or social economy? But also it's polarized within political challenges, so political parties and politicization of the issue. But it's okay because it is already on the table, and I think a further push is important because it is a core element that's affecting social economy actors in the region now. And one positive thing, and correct me, Mehdi, and probably other countries, so many of the legislative frameworks are not going into only social enterprise model. So most of them are going into a more inclusive type where many actors could be considered as part of the social economy model, not necessarily only social enterprises. And I see this as well as a positive element in policy making. So we're not looking and saying only social enterprises are part of the social economy. Civil society, NGOs, cooperatives, other forms of entities could be part of. And I think this is as well one of the wins of the last 10 years. So I talked about what has been accentuated. I'm not going to repeat like financing and technical support. Also, I want to highlight one thing, and because it's organized within the EU platform, and I can see this with a lot of confidence, the EU is still the core actor in supporting social economy in the region. I don't think there is any other actor that's more present. And yes, its role is very critical in the coming phase, because the risks are higher, the vulnerabilities are higher. So yes, I think the EU is still the main source of funding, technical support, engaging with policymakers. I hope the EU realizes that a less investment will have significant impact because the ecosystem is not mature yet, the sector is not mature yet. I want to raise one issue that often, because it's about a social dimension of the economy, is the technological advancement. We like it or we don't. AI and the speed of AI development in the world is affecting all sectors and governments. We like it or we don't. Do we feel good about it or we don't? It is affecting private sector, it's affecting government, it's affecting civil society. Why? Because a lot of the things that our cognitive used to be able to do is taken over. So whoever has access to those tools and instruments will have a higher leverage. If one of the recommendations is to make sure that rapidly there is AI integration within social economic actors so that they're equally competitive, because It's my conviction, I'm sure you're all reading studies, but we're all seeing it in our results. In Beyond Group today, a lot of what we used to do is now AI is being able to do many, and not only ChatGPT. If we do not equip ourselves to go fast and being able to adapt, we will be out of the market. We like it or we don't, it's not a issue of feeling. So this is why I am with, so that we've developed a task force for AI integration across different functions, product design, product development, access to market, but also in terms of functions, efficiency, scalability. There is massive opportunity there, but also there's a massive risk because we know it needs upskilling. This is possible, but it needs upskilling. And I think this is a core issue because yes, a social, even if it's a social enterprise, will have difficulty to sustain in the market if there is nothing being done at this level. My last 2 points is as well, another recommendation is keep this ecosystem approach. So I think the EU, at least the projects I have been part of, so for example, like now we're part of Sea Change with Cause, with Oxfam, has been invested in looking at the ecosystem. Social enterprises will not be able to live without a meso level. A meso level will not be able to live without a macro level. Keep this ecosystem approach, but also let's make use more of technology. So Beyond Group has been the component we've been working on Sea Change has been on the Scene platform. It's a digital platform that brings all actors together for access, for collaboration, for digital assistance, AI type of assistance, all type of activities that the ecosystem would need. And we're hoping that this will be scaled up in the region. It's being piloted in the country. I'm going to leave Luigi to speak more about it, so I'm not going to take this. Also, regional collaboration is becoming more important. I agree with Mehdi. Mehdi highlighted this. Why? Because it's access to markets. Yes, it's true that I can use social entrepreneurship, social economy alternatively. Why? Because we have weak economies in any case. The issue is we're still in the marketplace. If social enterprises will not have access to markets, and our markets are shrinking. If you look at economic indicators in the region, they're not good. So how social economy actors who will still need access to financing, to market too. So I think a regional collaboration is becoming more and more important to have higher access to financing, to technical capacity, to technology, to market. I think it's becoming, I think it's a requirement now. It's no longer a possibility. And finally, I'll close with this. Also, this is a message for the EU, is cross-sectorality. So we have projects on green economy, and we have on social economy, and we have on digital economy, and we have on sustainable economy, and we have on circular economy. And often we see the same actors trying to maneuver because of access to finance. I think it's about time. A social economy cannot not be green. A green economy cannot not be digital. A digital economy cannot not be circular. A circular economy cannot not be sustainable. I think somewhere, somehow, the EU needs to reconsider, and I know the different directorate and the different policy papers that come with it, and I've been in Brussels and I talk to people and everyone has one lens. My invitation is the possibility of starting to design programs with a cross-sectoral approach where the social and the green and the circular and the digital and the sustainable come together as one ecosystems to be able to have sustainable models. Otherwise, so it seems like there are like financing for this and finance, but they're both lacking financing. There are business support services for both, but both of them are suffering. There are policies that are being put, but none of those policies are moving forward. I think this cross-sectorality might be another critical issue in the coming phase to build sustainable systems, sustainable economic, socio-economic systems. Thank you. Over. I hope I didn't take much time.
Thank you, Gilbert. No, you didn't actually take enough time. And the second part of the panel will be moving to the EU part, where Virginie and Luigi and Simona will be complementing what you just started. Thank you for interesting. Thank you, Mehdi. We will be as well sharing with the participants set of polls for this session to be more interactive. So participants, please answer the polls when we launch them. If anyone has a question to Gilbert or Mehdi, please type it in the question section, and I'll be asking asking them. Now we will be moving to Virginie.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Bonjour à tous. I think Gilbert made it a very good transition for the EU, so thanks a lot, Gilbert. I'll share my screen. Let me know if you can see my presentation. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah, Virginie, we can.
Yeah, okay, excellent. You see it well? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so just a few words of introduction. I work with my colleague Christina on private sector development, and actually a very good point made by Gilbert in the fact that we are trying not to work in silos, but to have good synergies. So indeed, my colleague Christina work specifically on civil society, and I do manage the project on private development, but we really try to keep and design project that fits both needs, even though, I mean, it's a bit challenging sometimes. So before we dive into the subject, and before I give you an overview on what we do on social economy, I would like to recall the context. As you may know, there was a new agenda for the Mediterranean adopted in February 2022. It's an important guiding document that was agreed by the EU and the Southern partners countries. And the idea, of course, I mean, we have political statements, but we are willing, of course, to translate it into concrete initiatives and programs. So basically what the new agenda is saying is that, I mean, it's important to have a strong focus on inclusive growth and on an economy that works for people. And I think this is really something extremely important where, you know, when we design projects, we want it, you know, to be understandable and answering the needs of people. So specific attention is being paid to job creation, in particular young people, also SME development, and the green and digital transition. What we do on EU regional cooperation here in Brussels, I mean, we work very much in cooperation with our delegations in countries. So that's important to keep that in mind, that, you know, it's only one aspect of the puzzle, the regional cooperation. And on top of that, we have also the EU delegation in countries that specifically target design projects for the country they work in. So the support is being provided at different levels. So of course, we try to strengthen the policy dialogue. We work on institution strengthening, and we provide direct support to beneficiaries. So in that case, social entrepreneurs, for instance. So we do it through training, coaching, sharing of expertise from the EU side, but also in between the different countries, since we are dealing with the regional cooperation. It's very important to use the full EU toolbox. So as said, you know, the policy dialogues, we do grants, we do the financial mechanisms through the blending and guarantee, and we are working more and more with the financial institutions. That's an important aspect for access to finance. So basically under the regional cooperation, we use the pilot function. And when we see that it works well and that we have managed to incentivize something, then we try to have it replicated in the country. So just to give you a clue, we have an envelope funding of 100 million per year, out of which 30 million goes to economic development. So social economy, it's a priority for Europe, and as Gilbert mentioned, I mean, it has become mainstream, and I think it's a very good thing. So we had the Social Economy Action Plan adopted in 2021, calling for creating the right condition for boosting social innovation. So that's really let's say a document which is a kind of guiding document in the EU. As we know, there's a huge potential. So in addition to creating positive social impact, we think there's an important untapped economic and job creation potential. And in Europe, we are talking about almost 3 million entities working in the social economy sphere. Social economy makes also an important contribution to inclusive economy and the European pillar of social rights. So As Mehdi and Gilbert mentioned, I mean, when we speak about social economy, of course, we are speaking about a wide range of organizations, not only private entities, but also cooperatives. I mean, that's the case in Morocco, in Tunisia, mainly associations, foundations. And even though, I mean, we all know what it is, I mean, it's always interesting to recall the features. So where we are seeking primacy of people over profit. That doesn't mean that we don't want to that we don't want to make a profit, of course, but you know that's not the main core. Then there's a reinvestment of most of the profit to carry out the activities in the interest of the members. So the general interest is crucial in that model. There's a democratic and participatory governance, and usually the social entities are very much locally rooted to serve communities. Very interesting momentum at international level. I mean, of course, I represent the EU, but I mean, that's the case for UN, ILO, OECD as well. And that gives us, that can give us inspiration actually to work in regions. So just of the few regional initiatives on social economy, but I'm sure there will be more to come. So we have the SAPHIR program ongoing, I mean, in the phasing out, that was led by the Institut Français. And it was quite interesting in the sense that, you know, it was aiming at social economic inclusion of young people. So young leaders were trained, were put in contact with universities and incubators. And so that was a program running for 4 years. And I think we have managed to have interesting results, even though, of course, it's still a process. Our biggest program at the moment is a program that we have with EVPA, the European Venture Philanthropic Association. It's a network based in Brussels. They do a lot of capacity building on social economy. And this program is called Impact Together. It's covering the entire region, the 7 countries, and it amounts to 10 million. And basically what we want to do with this program is really to build on MEDUP. And I saw in the participants actually that we have representatives from Oxfam, so welcome. So we have this comprehensive ecosystem and access to finance approach. And basically what we want to do is really to continue developing the narrative on social economy, disseminate best practices. We've done it, but you know, I think we need to intensify. We will keep supporting the ecosystem players through capacity trainings, exchange of best practices and all that. An important aspect where maybe we need to emphasize a bit more is really to prepare entrepreneurs to scale up. So it's not so much to work at the seed funding stage, which is still important, because in the region, of course, we are speaking about a nascent sector, but still, you know, we have like robust social entrepreneurs that really need to scale up and that are actually willing to get investment grants and better mentoring. And I'm thinking in particular about, you know, making the business plan a bit more sustainable. An important aspect that as EU we are willing to do is to build an impact investor community and make a better link with the financial institutions, because you know they are the financial arms, let's say, in the EU family, and they can really give an interesting push to the sector. So it's always interesting to hear a few examples, you know, on top of all the theoretical and guiding documents and all that. So let me take 3 success stories and examples in the region that we have supported through MEDUP. So the first is Fabricade in Lebanon. So I think at the time they had more than 100 employees. It might be even more now. And what they do is actually to collect, sort, and resell second-hand clothes. And they are upcycling as well. And I think the model is super interesting. They had really a positive impact in the sense that, you know, they were making clothing affordable while reducing the fabric waste and promoting responsible fashion. And on top of that, on top of these values, they have managed to create jobs. So it's an interesting model, and they were able to scale up. And I know that now they want to be present in Egypt as well. The second example is Stars Mountain Rehabilitation Center in Palestine, which provides people with disabilities trainings and job opportunities in agriculture. And they were able also, to work quite well, to deliver fresh organic products. So that's a very interesting model. The third one is, you might know, it's Lemantour in Tunisia. That's, I mean, at the time it has little employees, but I mean the impact was much better. Par ricochet, they actually had a very diversified and important, let's say, a spillover effect, if I may say. So the idea was to offer touristic cycling services in Tunisia by bike. So basically developing local tourism and thereby making also the tour accessible for children. So these are some of the examples, actually, that projects that were supported by the EU. So just to summarize, the graphic here shows a little bit the approach that we want to have. So basically working on an enabling environment, working very much with the public authorities to put in place the legal framework, but also, to stimulate, to incentivize a little bit the political framework, then working with the intermediaries and both on the demand side and on the supply side for better answering the social needs. So that's a little bit a graphic which I find quite useful. Last but not least, I would like to have 2 slides on access to finance, because it's a key piece in the puzzle. I mean, if we want to help social entrepreneurs, I mean, Gilbert was mentioning the ecosystem approach. I mean, it's very important. And what we've seen, I mean, we conducted a study a bit more than 1 year ago on impact investing to really understand what was the landscapes in the region. And basically what we've seen is that despite the growing interest on social economy, the South countries still lag behind on social investment. So there's a huge space where we can actually intervene. There's uncertainties around the social economic concept. And even though now we all agree that, we know more or less what it is about, if we want to regulate, I mean, this might have a negative impact if we don't really know what this is about. So impact measurement is actually something very important. And in the program Impact Together, we really want to focus on impact measurement. So designing specific KPIs. What we've seen is that, I mean, that's an important message for the EU in the sense that, we've tried to develop financial tools, but we've seen that, when we speak to social entrepreneurs, they tell us that the traditional tools, especially microfinance, is not always adapted, So if we want to help social entrepreneurs, I think we need to diversify the instruments. Microfinance might be relevant in some of the countries, but, equity is still very important, guarantees as well, mezzanine financing and all that. So, that's really a message for us, which is important and that we want to bring forward to the financial institution. So paradox, as I said, there's a mismatch between the instruments that we put in place and the outreach to the private sector, where, it seems that we are doing a lot, but still there's the outreach to the private sector is not always there. The study has showed us as well that there's a low appetite of investors to come in the region. I mean, besides the political risk and economic downturn. I mean, when it comes to investment, we know that the ticket size is an issue for social entrepreneurs, the quality of deals, and weak ecosystems. And that's really, where we want to put emphasis, not only the EU, but also, when we speak to partners and other potential donors, we try to have this ecosystem approach. And I think this is really, when it comes to access to finance, one of the added value of the EU is trying to de-risk investments, to take the first loss piece, to work through guarantees. And I think, if we want to crowd the private investors, I mean, this is very important, and this is the role of the EU to try to de-risk investment. So the last slide on the recommendation, and this is something that we keep in mind when designing a social economy project, is the need for a dedicated instrument, an impact fund for social and green entrepreneurs. So as I said before, we cannot rely on the existing financial mechanisms. Second, we need to have this ecosystem approach from the key actors. And, if we want to unlock the potential of social entrepreneurs, we need to work on the different pillars. So non-financial as well as financial support, and as well as building a community, of course. a patient investor approach, because we are not working in the sphere of startup. And again, we know that if we do an investment for social entrepreneurs, then we need to do it with a long-term vision. As I said before, define specific KPIs, which I believe are a bit too broad and not always adapted currently, and use the blended finance. So the strategic use of EU money to mobilize additional finance. So that's what I would say in a nutshell in terms of what we are planning to do. But I mean, I'm also very happy to be able to listen to the different views, and that's really something important for the EU. Try to adapt and have our project that meets the needs of social entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginie. European Commission to the Regional Unit for Southern Neighborhood. Thank you for the EU continuous support for this sector, and I second what Gilbert said on that notion. Before moving with the other panelists, we have 3 questions. And after that, we will be having one poll and one minute pause for all participants to interact with this poll. First question is for Mahdi and Gilbert on how can social and solidarity economy work for the most vulnerable groups, especially women in the MENA region, especially that we see a low participation in the official labor market. And as Mahdi also mentioned, women do not own the land nor the resources. This is from Randa Senora. We start with you, Mahdi, and then Gilbert, if you have something to add on that notion.
Merci pour la question. En effet, un des grands enjeux, c'est de rendre concret l'intégration des personnes vulnérables dans l'économie sociale et solidaire. Et je pense que la meilleure chose à faire, c'est d'oublier l'économie sociale et solidaire, parce que souvent, on veut absolument organiser les personnes dans des coopératives ou dans des structures de l'économie sociale et solidaire, mais parfois, ces mêmes personnes ne sont pas en capacité, dans un premier temps, de gérer en autonomie des structures qui leur permettront d'avoir une réelle indépendance économique. Je donne l'exemple, on travaille avec des femmes artisanes. Il y a des personnes qui ont, par exemple, qui ne parlent pas français, qui ne parlent pas anglais, qui n'ont pas d'éducation numérique, qui ne sont pas mobiles, qui ne peuvent pas se déplacer à la rencontre du marché potentiel. Et donc, les réunir dans une structure en autonomie, ça pourrait avoir l'effet de les maintenir dans leurs problèmes. Donc, une des solutions pour ça, c'est de créer des alliances entre les structures de l'économie sociale et solidaire. Et l'exemple que nous, on a mis en place en Tunisie, c'est d'avoir des groupements de productrices qui produisent, parce que le travail d'un producteur, c'est de produire, c'est pas forcément d'être un marketeur en ligne ou d'être un influenceur. Donc, des personnes qui produisent et d'autres entités de l'économie sociale et solidaire qui ont pour mission de commercialiser ces produits-là. Et nous, par exemple, en tant qu'entreprise de l'économie sociale et solidaire, nous avons une boutique, nous faisons de l'export, nous faisons des commandes en B2B avec des grandes entreprises ou des acteurs de l'hôtellerie, et nos fournisseurs sont des structures de l'économie sociale et solidaire qui sont constituées de femmes en situation de vulnérabilité pour la plupart. Et donc, pour trouver la réponse, il faut qu'il y ait des alliances d'entraide entre les différents acteurs et pas penser de manière illusoire que des personnes qui subissent des vulnérabilités structurelles vont pouvoir par elles-mêmes, parce qu'elles sont dans un collectif, dépasser toutes les difficultés du secteur. Donc, il faut avoir cette approche aussi de chaîne et penser l'approche de toute la chaîne pour faire en sorte que les personnes vulnérables soient dans des conditions favorables pour se développer et peut-être un jour gérer en autonomie leur activité.
I agree with Mahdi from an ecosystem perspective. My answer would be of twofold. So first, there is my bias. So my background is in public policy. Because women are not only excluded in the social economy sector, so they're excluded in general in our societies in the region. And so women economic participation in general is very low. Women participation in the policy spheres is low. So it's across. So the social economy will not has a higher advantage than other traditional forms. But like my first answer on a macro level, I think if women won't be in policy-making spheres, means in politics, it's very difficult to have policies that are in favor of women, whatever we do. Because if I'm designing a policy, it's going to be according to my interest, consciously or unconsciously. But on a micro level, I agree with Mehdi, but also I would say that because social economic actors tend to, not all of them, patriarchy is everywhere, but because there is more tendency for a social purpose, the possibility of women engaging with existing or creating their own with the social purpose of reducing women marginalization is definitely more than traditional businesses, than the traditional economic sector. So this is why, yes, do I bet on, like something that Virginie said, so do I bet on having KPIs about women, a higher women participation in the social economy compared to the social economy? Yes. Is it more possible? Yes, it's more possible. Still, I think the barriers are structural barriers, have to do with patriarchy and our political/economic system. And I think if women will not be there, I think the evolution is very slow. It means women, less marginalization, inclusion is being very slow because the macro level is not in favor. That's why I want to go back into this cross sectorality. I'm calling it. We can call it a holistic approach. Means the social should be green because then there is a bigger pie for women and marginalized groups to be part of.
Thank you, Gilbert and Mahdi. And I can add one thing on this. At the Solidarity Directory, the organization I run, when we did the directory of all the cooperatives and social enterprises in the country, we've noticed that many of the cooperatives, even when women are part of the cooperatives, they are led by men, and there are few of those cooperatives or social enterprises led by women actually. And there are a few that are led by women and mainly of men members. So yeah, this is a challenge that has been ongoing for several reasons and factors, as you mentioned, and hopefully with prioritizing it on different agendas, we can push forward the women to front in economic development and in policy making and in all other sectors. We have another question that is for Virginie about the project that is targeting universities and incubators. Isn't it excluding rural and non-university students, which might be the most needing? And what about youth and refugees or youth refugees? So Virginie, this is for you.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. No, actually, but the program was quite inclusive, and basically what we were trying to do is to work well with universities, so of course like students, but I mean, I remember they worked as well with many different diversified stakeholders actually. So I mentioned incubators, universities, but there were also quite many people in remote areas, so it was not like centered specifically on the capitals. So having said that, I mean, like in terms of details, I can provide a bit more, but yeah, the purpose was a bit different than MEDUP. You know, MEDUP, it was more on the, let's say, private sector, but in the specific case of Saphir, because it had a very important component on civil society as well. So the scope was a bit different. And actually, just to rebondir on what Gilbert was saying, I mean, I would see the needs actually not to work in silos, but at the same time, because of the status, because of the particularity of the situation, sometimes it's difficult to design a project that would be too broad, because then you're missing the target a little bit. So that's also what I perceive as a challenge. Now, on specifically on the programs as well, I think what we would want to do is to have to be able to check better impact, because you know we do get, of course, the reports. We try, you know, we have the different events, regional events, and all that. But you know, sometimes we would need to do a better follow-up. You know, like to give a concrete example, you know, if we have helped a student, or if we have worked in a remote area, if we have worked with an incubators, you know, we provide technical assistance and all that during the lifetime of the project. But then, you know, what happens in terms of measuring the impact a bit later on, because, you know, we are in something which requires time. So that's a little bit where we have a big question mark on our side. You know, what's the actual impact of the project that we set up?
Virginie, I think I have another question for you. It's from Emilia Abdallah. Thank you. It's about the criteria of support. So in order to receive support for SE, is that they need to be young and or female led, but what about the businesses led by experienced individual aged between 35 to 50 years who have experience and knowledge, but they don't fit in the criteria? So do you have anything to say on the criteria thing on that matter?
Yeah, but I mean, it depends on the project, and actually we don't want to impose that. So usually we work very much with the partners to set the criteria. So for instance, in the MENA program, because, you know, we need to have a framework. So it's not that we, you know, we can. I mean, we need to have transparency criteria and set the framework for that. So you know, it's about, like, you know, is it registered, which is an issue, of course, because in terms of informality, we know that it's quite important in the region. So it's about, you know, the business plan, the willingness to have a better business plan as well. So, you know, it depends a little bit. Now in the new project, we are trying, you know, not to target the seed stage. So, you know, that has been done quite a lot, but we're trying, for instance, as a criteria to tackle the existing companies of at least 2 or 3 years, you know, because as I said before, we want to focus on the growing stage. But just to mention that the criteria is quite transparent. It might differ from one project to another, depending on the scope that we have. It's not the same if we work in the private sector than if we want to target specifically young entrepreneurs. And usually that's, we work hand in hand with the local partners to define the criteria and not imposing from Brussels what might not fit the specific country context.
Thank you, Virginie. We have plenty of questions from the participants. Thank you, everyone, for sending the questions, and keep them coming. There is a question that is not assigned to any panelists, so feel free to raise your hand, panelists, if you are willing to answer. How social economy organizations can use technology to advance their social and environmental mission? This is from Dana. Gilbert, do you want to answer this, since you were like talking about the role of technological advancements, AI, and how to contextualize it and using it in the local context and towards the support of the social economy?
What's the question? Because I'm trying to read the question, so, and then you mentioned it rapidly. So what is the question?
Okay, so the question was how social economy organizations can use technology to advance their social and environmental missions. So you were speaking previously around the AI technology and how we can optimize and localize this use of technology for the advancement of social economy. So
because also we know that in the social economy there are the startups and the growth stage and the mature organizations, and we have the partially for-profit and the non-for-profit, and we have the local and the regional, and we have the city, the urban, small and big. So of course not everyone easily can have the same access to technology. At the same time, because it is a sector that needs to grow, and I'm very convinced. I know that sometimes some people are saying like, but that's too much ambition. I'm very convinced that particularly AI, other technology, but particularly AI will be very disruptive of economies, of social systems, of government systems. I know many people might challenge this, at least in my daily experience, but also in my acquaintance with different spheres, being in Europe or the MENA region. For me, it's inevitable to survive. Yes, if there is a group of farmers working together in the region, yes, they can make use of technology, maybe not AI, but maybe some AI-driven tools, instruments, possible as well. More difficult access, more expensive. We're all conscious of this. But at least the ones who can making use of those tools for all forms of, again, efficiency, accessibility, scalability, transformation of social models to make them more scalable, more impactful. I think it plays a massive role, and I think we like it or we don't, it will have disruptive role on the private sector, on government, and on the social economy actors. And I think my suggestion would be, and that's something now we're starting to provide for organizations based on our experience internally, how to integrate AI across. So a very lean method of going, analyzing what are the repetitive tasks, what are the inefficiencies, and then what type of tools could be valuable or non-valuable, and then at the level of products development, or at the level of scalability, or at the level, and have very rapid sprints to integrate those tools within organizations, doing the research on their behalf, and then see what could be user-friendly for their context. Yes, so not everyone has the skill set, the access, the financial capacity. Absolutely. So this, what I'm saying, is not generalizable, though I would see the next program of the EU having a significant accent on this, because it will be disruptive, and many organizations might be out of the model if they're not adapting. And I'm not going to go into examples. I'm sure many of you can give examples of how this is a high risk and a high opportunity.
Thank you, Gilbert. This opens also the questions and the thoughts around the meaningful use of technology on the local context, on the upskilling of the members of the enterprises of the social and solidarity economy, and the technological infrastructure in the MENA region, and especially in countries like Lebanon, Tunisia, and Maghreb, and especially in rural areas where the production is happening. So this is an interesting, exciting topic. I share the excitement, but I believe like there is much work to be done. I share the enthusiasm on the technological level, but I believe like that this needs to be more contextualized and localized. And
but Dalil Tadamun is a good example of using technology for scalability.
Yeah, it is, but it is also challenging to transform this into the local context. What we do at Dalil Tadamun, for example, what we did all the technological work. So when we do the technological work, all the heavy duty back-end technological work, it works. But when the enterprises themselves need to do it, it's the challenge. So what we did, like we mapped them all, and we mapped all cooperatives and social enterprises on one technological tool, which is the directory, and we empowered them from the back end with technologies. But to transform this for them and to mainstream it in their context on the enterprise level, that's the challenge, because many things need to be done. And I share with you the excitement and the enthusiasm, but I believe like much work would be needed on the infrastructure level, and on the upskilling level, and on the awareness advocacy level to have this transformation to be meaningful and contextual. Thank you, Gilbert. We will continue more conversation over coffee when we meet. I have like plenty of questions, but I will not go through them all because of the time. But there was a question about the percentage of the durability of these social enterprises after the end of the project, or not. I believe like there is no exact percentage, but it's a question of durability after the end of the project. So this is a question if you want to answer, Virginie, or.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I mentioned before about the impact, because the lifetime of a project, I mean, which is not very short, by the way. I mean, it's usually 4 or 5 years. Of course, I mean, after that, it's easy to lose track on what's happening exactly. The good thing, the very positive thing, I would say, is that from the EU part, and this is where we are as Gilbert mentioned, I think, a very strong partner and solid partner, because once we're there, if we see that there is potential, and if we see that, you know, we have kind of a enthusiasm and dynamism around the, you know, specific topic or sectors, etc. So we stay there. And in the case of social economy, we don't start from scratch. I mentioned this big program Impact Together, but we had, you know, MEDUP, we had Safir, we had even before program on social economy. So, you know, we are trying to stay, you know, and basically the purpose, what we can do, I mean, we cannot do the individual follow-up of entrepreneurs, but what we can do is really be consistent when helping the ecosystem. And that's really the macro, you know, the macro and the meso where we have the added value. So on the macro, really be there and boosting and helping the public authorities, you know, to incentivize and to be there. And on the ecosystem, of course, to keep working through expertise, technical assistance, and all that, plus the access to finance. So this is where I really see the added value of the EU. Now, when it comes to specific individual entrepreneurs, what I can say is that, of course, some of them, they did super well. And I mentioned Fabricate in Lebanon, for instance. They received the support not only from the EU, by the way, you know, because they have a sustainable model. They were also able, you know, to go towards private investors and all that. But this is an example where we could see that, you know, there's really an additionality of the EU. While in some other cases, of course, we would provide some financing, but of course, it might not be that successful. But again, I think as a solid partner, I think the added value is really on the policy side and on the ecosystem strengthening.
Thank you, Virginie. I will not go through all the other questions because of the time. I would ask Mu'tasim and the technical team to please launch the first poll, and we will have 1 minute to engage with it, and then we will continue with our session. Thank you. The first poll is, does the social economy need a specific legal framework? Yes, no, or I don't know. Thank you everyone for engaging with the poll. Now we will continue with Luigi Cavallito from CAUSE, the Sea Change Project Manager. The floor is yours, Luigi.
Thank you, Ala, and good afternoon, everyone. If Mu'tasim, you can share the presentation. In the meantime, I would love to say that I will try to give you in 10 minutes a practical answer of what Virginie was referring to when she talked about an economy that works for people. Because sometimes we make the opposite. We try to make the people working for the economy, and this is not the way around. So Sea Change is not a regional project, is a local project in Lebanon that as COSV, we are implementing since 2020 with our colleagues from Oxfam and the Beyond Group. And this is literally like also one of the proof that when the European Union say we want to continue to partner, we are still there, because it was based on three organizations, COSV, Beyond Group and Oxfam, that are working in the advancement of the social and solidarity economy in Lebanon since long time. Some of these projects were funded by the European Union, some not. Can we go forward? And I know that the situation in the region and also in Lebanon is somehow challenging. And I don't want to talk about the problem because we might know what the problem are. But we need also to shake the narrative that we have. And so what can you do when everything goes wrong? And I think that in Lebanon, a lot of things went wrong, but somehow the people make the difference. And here you can see some example of things and activities that have been made by people for the people. People that now we call social entrepreneurs, but they usually don't define themselves like this. They just start to fix the problem that were there. And when we talk about fixing problems, we have also to think that it takes time. And time is something that we need to give to ourselves. Go ahead in the next slide. So when you think about a program like this one that is 3 years in the making and 7.5 million euro of budget for Lebanon, the objectives were literally like to support like the local economy and the development and enhancement of social stability. These are the big thing that we want to reach. But at the end of the day, it's not only about what we want to achieve, but how we are going to do it. Go ahead. And the Sea Change is an answer to this, and it was an answer because we need to focus on the big picture. The big picture, as also like Gilbert and Mehdi said before, is that we are not alone there. It's not only about international organization. It's not only about the European Union, the donor. There are other like players in place. The CESO, that is the Social Entrepreneurship Support Organization. So these organizations that are there, even when the project finished, to help these social entrepreneurs to move forward. We have, of course, the social entrepreneurs, but we have private companies, NGOs, CSOs, cooperatives, unions, syndicates, education institutions, informal communities, and somehow all the people that really want to make a difference, that want to support each other. And we also have public authorities. Sometimes the solution is not to focus on one group, but to look at the ecosystem. So Sea Change is also the acronym of Social Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Change. But we have a problem. Please go ahead with the slide. That how to provide this real change. Because when we write it on paper and we say out loud, who wants change, every one of us wants it. Who wants to change, and is something that asks us to change something, then you know that the audience is not really like able to say, okay, I'm going to start. And especially who wants to lead the change is quite hard for everyone to answer to this, because sometimes we don't want like the people to perceive that there are too much responsibility, but at the end of the day, it's about how to make this happen. So as an example in Sea Change, considering that we needed to challenge an entire ecosystem and a paradigm, go ahead in the next slide. All the program has been designed to talk with every person that was willing to listen and to support on 4 different levels. A technical level that of course is needed by training on the concept of social entrepreneurship, but also on capacitating the community. On a social level, because these community members are people like us that just want to provide also this like way of monitoring what is happening. And sometimes aside of like the expert on the field, it's literally about asking people, okay, how do you think that in your community we can assess that a social enterprise is doing a good job? And instead of creating a top-down approach, we create it with them. And so this kind of social impact measurement that also like Virginie was talking about, if on a financial scale can be done with financial institution, at the community level, it should be done with people, because otherwise we have ROI and return of investment, but we don't know if we have an effective impact on the people life. Economic level, of course, because money sometimes is something that is needed and it's an accelerator that we need to put there in place. And here there has been the potential to help 60 existing social enterprises, some of them that have already been funding before, because there is a need not only to start a social enterprise, but also to follow up. And also this is something that Virginie said pretty well, that the time frame of projects is not aligned with the life of an organization, of a company. If you go to the Silicon Valley and you think about the most successful startup out there, they took 8 to 10 years to become profitable. And sometimes we ask the people to become profitable in 1 year or 2. This is not how the games work in economic. So the possibility to support whoever is already there, it's important. But we didn't finish there, because we achieve even more, because we support a new project, and we will see in a minute, but also we work on the 4th political level, policy level, that is to engage the ecosystem to draft together a legal frameworks and a proposal for a law that it's maybe 10 years in the making. We don't know how much time it's still needed. Maybe a couple of months, maybe a couple of years. It's not dependent, of course, only on us, because there is lawmakers and other actors that are there to decide if it can be done. But we cannot stop, because otherwise we are going to lose the momentum that is worldwide happening. So in terms of achievement, and go to the next slide, this is where the things became juicy, because we didn't just wrote down a beautiful plan and we didn't execute it, but we literally went and on the 4 different pillars, we have trained more than 1,000 people to understand what a social entrepreneur is and what they can do, train more than 40 organizations that are going to stay in Lebanon to support the ecosystem. We created a conversion in between what social enterprises and SMEs needs to work together, because sometimes even this clustering, and it's important because as Gilbert was mentioning, if we work in silos, we are not going anywhere. And then, of course, there is the SIM platform that we're going to see later, that is also an established platform that should work for Lebanon, but also for the region, where every time that we do a meeting, the people say, I would love to have a platform where we can find all the information and we share expertise, opportunities, resources, and even sometimes to buy stuff in between ourselves for a kind of social procurement. Okay, now the platform is there. And as a Lebanese perspective, because sometimes there is also a lack of data, we also have been able to have a platform that is called Markup, that is right now launched in the north of Lebanon, to collect data with the young people from universities in order to provide a better upskilling and job matching. This is at the technical level. At the social level, there have been community members that have been involved throughout 3 years all around the project, and the social impact measurement, as I told you, has been created with them. At the economic level, more than 60 Zs have been capacitated and supported, and still right now we are moving with them, and 21 collaborative initiatives, and this is something that as COSV we have led directly the component, have been implemented to enhance social justice with a collaborative model. So instead of only supporting one organization, we were supporting their ability to collaborate, to not reinvent the wheel, and to move forward together. Investing more than €1 million in cash grants, so it means money that we don't decide how to spend, but that the social entrepreneur decide how to invest. And at the policy level, there is something that might be of inspiration also for other countries. Now we have an operative task force with multi-stakeholders, including the European Union, the livelihood sector, UNDP, ILO, and several different actors that are managing together a session to have a draft law that is on the making for social and solidarity economy, and also several different policy papers that are needed to contribute to a more sustainable, inclusive, and just Lebanon. And what I'll say is that also true that sometimes theory and practice are quite different, but we need the practice to work, not only the theory, in the innovation of the society that we want. Move ahead. Just to give you also some screenshot that what I'm talking is existing, this is a screenshot of the SIM platform that you can find online, where we want to bring the ecosystem together. And every one of you that is in this call, I think that is interested to collaborate. So please just go and register on it. We will share the link in the chat later on. Go ahead. This is the markup platform where we're integrating Power BI, business intelligence, and algorithm to everything that can be collected on the ground by students, for students, because somehow they are the most affected. So instead of trying to manage a program for NEET, not employed in education and training, we are trying to make them participants to what the future looks like, collecting data. Go ahead. Last but not least, we have also Undersea Change, kind of organization that is providing collaboration among all the European Union supported project that is called EDPU, that is collecting all the papers, because this was something that locally has been literally supported and sought by the European Union and also from every one of us, that we cannot have 8 consortium working around the country that they don't talk to each other. It's important that they coordinate. So from the very beginning, all the projects funded by the European Union had a platform to share, meetings to meet, and the resources are all available for everyone. So even this link with some interesting insights are going to be available for everyone. And the last slide, we started with people and we finished with people. So throughout these 3 years, I've been able to see a country that is Lebanon, that have been on the news, unfortunately, for a lot of horrible things that happen. What I've seen in Lebanon is a community of amazing people that is trying to make a difference. We need to change the narrative, stop just also shouting on each other and trying to think if it's one thing better than the other, but working together. And I'm proud that this project is working. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luigi. Thank you for sharing this interesting and exciting news and project. And many more things to be done, especially on the policy level, as many actors are active on that front. The answer for the legal framework for social economy, the need for a legal framework for social economy, was 85% yes, 7% no, and 8% I don't know. So those are the results for the first poll. Now we will be moving to Simona Federico, the project manager of Restart Maghreb from COSPE. COSPE Maghreb. She will be speaking in French, right, Simona? So
yeah, oui.
Those who are non-French speakers, switch with the interpretation.
Merci, Alain. Je peux... OK. Je vais essayer de partager avec vous une présentation pour effectivement pouvoir échanger sur l'expérience que nous avons vécue dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre d'un projet qui s'appelle Restart Maghreb. Mais les interventions de Mehdi, Gilbert, Virginie, Luigi ont donné déjà beaucoup d'éléments sur lesquels moi j'aimerais bien revenir et qui m'ont interpellée. Et j'espère que dans le cadre de la présentation, effectivement, je pourrais répondre peut-être à quelques questions ou reprendre voilà, des éléments qui ont été déjà anticipés par les autres. Donc, dites-moi si vous voyez mon écran. C'est bon? C'est bon?
Yeah, done.
OK. Donc, le projet Restart Maghreb, c'est un projet de coopération qui est porté par l'ONG italienne COSPE, pour laquelle je travaille, comme elle a anticipé, et qui a été financé par l'Union européenne et l'Union africaine dans le cadre d'un programme, d'une initiative, que c'est le Youth Innovation Hub. Et au contraire du projet qui nous a été présenté par COSPE, il s'agit d'un projet régional qui a touché 3 pays de la macro-région maghrébine, la Tunisie, le Maroc et l'Algérie. Et il nous a permis aussi de mobiliser un large consortium de partenaires, surtout des associations qui sont installées on peut dire, dans les territoires d'intervention et qui travaille depuis assez longtemps sur la promotion de l'économie sociale et solidaire. Le projet Restart il vise prioritairement la création d'emplois dignes pour les jeunes, mais surtout la promotion du rôle des jeunes et des acteurs de l'économie sociale et solidaire comme acteurs de changement dans leur territoire. Et déjà, voilà, Mehdi, Gilbert, Virginie ont anticipé, comment dire, des éléments importants à ce propos. Moi, j'ai une vision assez plus optimiste par rapport à celle qui a été présentée par Luigi dans le dessin qu'on a visualisé. Je crois plutôt que désormais, il y a de plus en plus de personnes qui se mobilisent et qui se sont des acteurs réels de changement et qui veulent intervenir pour répondre à ce qui sont les défaillances du système actuel. Ça, dans la rive nord et dans la rive sud de la Méditerranée. Et bien évidemment, c'est très important pour nous, organisations, et bien évidemment même pour l'Union européenne, de concentrer les efforts pour soutenir cet élan de changement et aussi appuyer, comment dire, le renforcement de l'écosystème afin qu'effectivement les acteurs et actrices qui se mobilisent puissent avoir un impact important, comme Virginie le disait tout à l'heure. Pour ce faire, dans le cadre du projet Restart, qui a démarré effectivement en pleine pandémie en avril 2020, on a voulu agir sur plusieurs niveaux. Donc, premièrement, sur le développement des compétences des jeunes pour la création d'entreprises sociales. Et ça, c'est au niveau micro. Donc, le soutien direct à la création et à la consolidation des initiatives économiques qui s'inscrivent dans l'économie sociale et solidaire. Deuxièmement, comme on l'a rappelé même dans toutes les interventions qui m'ont précédé, on a fait un travail pour promouvoir un écosystème de services adéquat à l'accompagnement et à la consolidation et au financement de l'entrepreneuriat social porté par les jeunes. Et donc, un travail assez large nous a permis de nous concentrer sur le développement de compétences, sur le partage de méthodologies, sur la consolidation des structures d'accompagnement. Et au niveau plus macro, on a beaucoup travaillé pour favoriser la création de synergies entre les différents acteurs de la chaîne, donc les entreprises sociales, le privé social, les institutions, les autorités locales, et bien évidemment les acteurs de la société civile, afin de créer des tables de concertation, des espaces de concertation où les jeunes promoteurs d'initiatives d'économie sociale et solidaire pouvaient accroître leur impact, donc l'impact dans leur communauté et dans leur territoire en tant qu'acteurs de changement. Donc oui, évidemment, les jeunes sont au centre de l'action que nous avons promue dans le cadre de Restart. C'est pas parce que les gens plus âgés ne peuvent pas intervenir en tant qu'acteurs de changement ou parce qu'on a voulu pas prioritariser plutôt les femmes. Bon, il y avait bien évidemment les jeunes femmes, mais c'est parce que voilà, à un certain moment, il faut trouver choisir des cibles sur lesquelles se concentrer pour proposer aussi des activités adaptées. Des jeunes qui se mobilisent en tant qu'acteurs de la société civile, en tant qu'entrepreneurs, qui deviennent aussi menteurs et coachs, en tant que porteurs d'idées innovantes, en tant que chercheurs, en tant qu'activistes. Et donc, qu'on a pu croiser tout au long de nos interventions. J'avais préparé des petits slides pour vous donner quelques éléments sur ceux qui ont été les résultats majeurs de ce projet régional qui va bientôt se clôturer à la fin de l'année. Mais voilà, je ne veux pas prendre trop de temps à reparcourir des chiffres et mais plutôt, je voudrais vous présenter la logique. Donc, pour ce qui concerne la formation destinée aux jeunes qui voulaient effectivement s'investir dans la création d'entreprises sociales et entreprises impact, nous, on est intervenu à partir de la phase de l'idéation jusqu'à la phase de consolidation et d'accompagnement. Il y avait une personne qui avait posé la question à propos de la durabilité des projets suite la durabilité des entreprises suite à la clôture des projets. Et bien, effectivement, je crois que tout le monde est conscient du fait que les entreprises, les startups vivent, comment dire, une phase très délicate, même après la post-création, et que souvent, les projets, ils s'arrêtent dans la phase de création et de formalisation. Bon, nous, avec ce projet qui quand même a une durée limitée, à 3 ans, on a voulu intervenir aussi sur la consolidation des initiatives et l'accompagnement post-création, le networking et surtout, comme on disait, pour ce qui concerne le renforcement de l'écosystème, sur le renforcement d'incubateurs et de structures présentes sur les différents territoires afin de garantir la durabilité effectivement de l'accompagnement, donc de la durabilité de l'assistance technique et de tous les services qui continueront à être comment dire, disponibles sur les différents territoires grâce au système qui a été consolidé. Et pour ce qui concerne voilà, la formation des accompagnateurs et accompagnatrices et la consolidation des structures, là aussi, on a mené une action à plusieurs niveaux. Bien évidemment, il y a un cluster plus étroite de formateurs, accompagnateurs qui sont devenus formateurs de formateurs et qui représentent un peu le cœur, on peut dire, de cette communauté qui s'est consolidée dans le cadre du projet. Mais il y a aussi pas mal de structures publiques, privées et associatives qui ont été touchées par un travail de partage d'outils, partage de techniques, information et sensibilisation pour développer même la confiance, comme on le disait tout à l'heure, par rapport à ce que l'économie sociale et les entreprises de l'économie sociale peuvent effectivement porter et la durabilité, bien évidemment, de ces entreprises. Et donc, un travail aussi assez large a été fait par rapport à la sensibilisation et dialogue avec les institutions financières, que ce soit banques commerciales et institutions de microfinance, afin de réfléchir ensemble sur la possibilité d'introduire de nouveaux services financiers plus adaptés aux exigences et aux besoins et aux spécificités des startups portées par les jeunes et des startups sociales. Et dans ce sens, comme elle disait Virginie, donc l'appui au soutien financier, l'appui, comment dire, l'appui technique, donc l'accompagnement technique ont été menés en parallèle. Et ce qui nous a permis aussi de monter, on peut dire, des plans d'investissement où on partage l'investissement, comment dire, privé et l'accès à crédit à travers toute une activité d'intermédiation financière qui était mise en place. Et bon, je vois que j'ai déjà pris beaucoup de temps. On a aussi travaillé sur, bien évidemment, le renforcement des espaces de concertation, comme je le disais, et on l'a fait à plusieurs niveaux, tout en partant tout d'abord par les territoires, où on a voulu renforcer le dialogue avec les autorités locales et les institutions. On a promu toute une série d'événements territoriaux et une série d'ateliers pour développer ensemble et de manière coordonnée une planification stratégique conjointe pour lancer aussi des initiatives pilotes de valorisation et requalification des territoires. On a travaillé aussi à l'échelle macro-régionale sur l'appui à lancement campagne de plaidoyer organisée directement par les acteurs de l'économie sociale et solidaire, comme il le disait Mehdi. Avec Shanti, on a aussi proposé un forum méditerranéen qui a pu, réunir plusieurs acteurs et aborder plusieurs sujets d'actualité pour le développement et le soutien de l'économie sociale en Méditerranée, particulièrement dans la région Maghreb. Et nous aussi, on a lancé effectivement une plateforme web collaborative. Une plateforme web qu'on a effectivement appelée collaborative car c'est les utilisateurs qui en font la recherche et où chaque personne qui vise s'investir, au mieux connaître les actualités de l'économie sociale en Tunisie, au Maroc et en Algérie, il peut intervenir pour proposer ses services, ses opportunités et partager avec la communauté toute entière. C'est une plateforme francophone, au contraire, j'imagine, de l'autre, et donc pourquoi pas, on pourrait trouver ensemble des possibilités de collaboration, d'établir des synergies afin que si ces deux plateformes numériques puissent dialoguer. Donc, je voulais juste rappeler deux éléments qui sont aussi revenus dans les présentations précédentes et sur lesquels qui sont aussi un peu de recommandations pour la suite de nos interventions. C'est très important de développer des parcours stratégiques qui vont au-delà des projets et une grande partie des résultats qu'on a pu attendre à travers le projet Restart, il est lié aussi à cette dynamique qui va au-delà du projet ponctuel et bien que tout le monde, la majorité d'entre nous, s'appuie sur des projets financés par des bailleurs de fonds qui ont une durée limitée. Et c'est très important de garder l'ancrage territorial et donc pour nous de travailler davantage sur le développement de districts de l'économie sociale et solidaire qui représente aussi un peu la force de notre approche parce que pour nous le territoire c'est le réel laboratoire où effectivement les initiatives économiques sont étroitement liées au contexte social et culturel. Et l'autre point que je voulais mettre comme ça sur la table, c'est la nécessité aussi de promouvoir le réseau et le réseautage pour passer du local au global. Et donc, nous, en tant qu'acteurs aussi de coopération, nous pourrons jouer le rôle important de, établir ces liens aussi transnationaux, échanger comme on l'a fait aujourd'hui sur les bonnes pratiques pour s'enrichir réciproquement et aussi alimenter cette masse critique qui peut influencer les politiques publiques, que ce soit au niveau méditerranéen, au niveau européen, au niveau national, aussi au niveau local.
Thank you, Simona. We will not have time to go through the Q&A now. We'll be having some of the questions answered in the coming sessions and at the end of the session. Please, Mu'tasim and the technical team, can we go through the second poll, please? Thank you, Simona, for the interesting presentation and for the interesting project as well. The poll is: the social economy a solution to unemployment? Yes, no, or I don't know. And we will be sharing the results of this poll by the beginning of the next session. In the coming part of the panel, we will be talking about building regional convergences with Alberto Zoratti, next aspect, social protection platform initiative.
Thank you, Ala. I think that your connection doesn't work very well. So I think it's my time now. And just a moment, because I'm trying to share my screen. Please let me know if it does work or not.
Yeah, it's working. Meanwhile, I'll be sharing the poll results because I'm seeing them on the screen. 86% believe that social economy is a solution to unemployment. 12% no, and 2% I don't know. And I believe that this is what you will be tackling in your session, Alberto. So the floor is yours, and we can see your screen. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I hope my presentation is working now. And thank you very much for the organizer for the invitation to this meeting. And I'd like also to thank Simona for her previous presentation, because she focused a lot on our SCOSP intervention at territorial level. I'd like to give you some feedback on our vision. My intervention will be complementary to that of Simona's one. And I'd like to start my presentation raising a question, quite a political or philosophical question. And in your opinion, do you think is it possible to talk about or speak about social and solidarity economy and the possibility to support the development of social and solidarity economy at territorial national level without taking into consideration the trade policies and the economic policies the European Union decided to promote across the region and in the countries that made up the Mediterranean basin? And I'll try to reply to my question at the end of my presentation. But for do this, I'd like to start with a general introduction and focusing on a specific event, an historical milestone that more or less 12 years early on occurred in the countries of the region. At the late 2010, the early 2011, millions of people decided to take the street in order to ask for freedom. And frankly speaking, the claim of those demonstrations was wider. No, they asked for bread, social justice, and freedom. And because we are talking about societies that at that time faced a lot of social problems, we are talking about societies where before the global economic downturn of 2008, the average official unemployment rate across Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Syria, and Tunisia was higher than in any other region in the world, where the poverty rate affected a large part of the population, especially young people and women, where in some contexts there were high rate of undernourishment. There was a lack of access to basic needs as water, sanitation, education, and also at the rural area, some farmers haven't any access to land because of a dispossession of the territories by private sector. And notwithstanding this situation, the Western government, especially the United States, but also the European Union, decided to give a different interpretation to this phenomenon, focusing especially on the last word of the claim, freedom. In the sense of they decided to split the meaning in two pillars. The first one was political freedom. No, millions of people ask for democracy. No, we are talking about autocratic governments. People ask for freedom, for complete democracy, the possibility to participate to free election, to have freedom of speech, and also the possibility to create association. But the other pillar was focused especially on economical freedom. Western governments said that those uprisings were focused on the necessity of free markets, on including the local and the national economies to the global one through privatization, support the private sector, investment facilitation, and so on. But the explanation was, if we want to deal with and solve the social problem, we need to create market opportunities and to liberalize the national market. But if we go through some specific publication of international program or international institution as UNDP, we can realize that these problems have been caused by policies applied in the previous decades, especially starting from the 80s and across all the 90s, where the national governments and the regimes decided to apply a specific structural adjustment packages promoted or imposed, it depends on the point of view, the international financial institution as IMF or World Bank, in order to boost their economy. We are talking about cutting down public spending, privatization, support to the private sector, integration of this economy in the global one. But unfortunately, just a thin layer of the population benefited from these policies because the large part was excluded from the market. And notwithstanding this awareness, in the immediate aftermath of the uprising, the European Commission decided to confirm its market-driven approach and proposed deep and comprehensive FTAs to some countries, like Morocco, Tunisia. But the European Commission tried also to understand if it was possible to start to negotiate free trade agreement also with Jordan and Egypt, but at the end they give up because of specific situation in that countries. And which are the main consequences of the implementation of a free trade agreements? The abolition of custom duties. It means cut down the revenues for the state, but also the facilitation of the import of cheap goods and products from abroad. And I'm wondering how specific startup, social and solidarity economy startup, agroecology, farmers and producers can compete with cheap product coming from abroad and often subsidized by, I don't know, European Union in case of the food sector. And the free trade agreements, the request from the implementation of free trade agreement is the tax exemption. The state invested additional money for infrastructure in order to attract investment and capital. And usually is mostly based on the low price of labor. And the problem is that this investment doesn't request obligation for the corporation and for the investor to respect labor and human rights. We can have as a model, as an example, the textile sector in the Maghreb area. And unfortunately, labor rights, environmental issues, and the human rights are not binding in the European Union policies. If we read through the chapters of the FTAs, labor rights, environmental chapters are not binding, just voluntary. It doesn't exist any binding treaty on corporation and human rights. I have to add also the participation of civil society organization, local organization, producers to DigiTrade meeting and are just consultative. And the advisory group have just limited monitoring power on the impact of FTAs, on the impact on local economies, on local production, on the environment where we are trying to understand how to support the development of social and solidarity economy or good practices of alternative economy. And how can we support, in our opinion, from our point of view, and a creation of a good environment where support social and solidarity economy framework. We think that it could be very useful to focus on consolidating a Mediterranean approach in order to re-establish a Mediterranean strategy where facilitate the participation of a civil society organization and of the national organization of each country. I'm not talking about on just consultative platform. I'm talking about the possibility to give the right of co-decision to the different stakeholders living in the area in order to create a strategy toward a real sustainable development, a protection of human rights, environmental protection. There is I think an important point to highlight. In order to support this kind of partnership, in order to support this kind of pathway toward a more sustainable, fair economy, we need to understand how to modify, especially for the region, for the Mediterranean basin, the trade policy of the European Union, how to create a specific policy towards sustainability, an alternative trade mandate that can help this kind of goal, to reach this kind of goal. And I'd like not to read through all these criteria, but I'd like to highlight just some of them in order to be clear. And obviously, the first one is the most obvious. No, the human rights, women's rights, labor rights should have priorities on over corporate and private interest. But it's very important the governments could regulate again import, export, and investment in order to support their own specific strategies for sustainable development and also for protect startup related to a fairer economy. And the European trade policy to respect the right of countries and regions to develop local and regional economy over global trade, especially in a specific strategic sector as the food sector that impacted, affected a lot of people at the local level. And the other part is related to the behavior of a corporation. The European government should impose to their corporation to take into account to respect social and environmental impact and rights in order to avoid negative consequences at the territorial community level. So this is by the end of my presentation, and I'd like to try to answer to my original question. Is it possible to think, to rethink a new economy, an alternative economy, an effective social and solidarity economy framework without changing our approach on trade and economics? I think it's quite impossible. But I think that this opportunity you have given to us to discuss and the possibility to create a common platform at the Mediterranean level could give a contribution in order to change this kind of strategy in order to go toward a more sustainable economy for all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Alberto. I was personally super interested in this presentation and with what the EU and the MENA region countries can do on the policy level to advance social solidarity economy. We will be taking questions after Farah's contribution. Farah, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ala. Hello, everyone. This is Farah Al-Shami. I'm a senior fellow and the Social Protection Program Director at the Arab Reform Initiative. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for the previous speakers for their insights and illuminations, for their very good presentations. Now, Alberto's presentation is indeed what resonates with me the most because he looks at it from a macro structural perspective that is basically and from a developmental perspective, and this is basically the lens from which I look at it. Now to begin with, I'm going to echo what Gilbert mentioned, which is basically social and solidarity economy is an old practice but a new concept, and I fully agree with that. It's not part of the modern state. It has forever been there. And it has forever been the way people have carved out some kind of informal forms of social protection for themselves and forms of solidarity. And to also further emphasize that the ILO Director General has mentioned this lately, that social and solidarity economy is getting a more global recognition lately, and especially on the occasion, quote unquote, of just transition, the discussions about the green economy, the care economy, the gig economy, the rapid digital transformations, and simply basically just transition mainly, actually. Now, my entry point is that despite all this, social and solidarity economy is a broad term, and it can have different meanings, it can take different forms, and we can look at it from different perspectives. But how I see it is basically that it is the key to ensure even development, equitable development, and an equitable distribution of wealth and public resources. And a key component of it, and this is the focus or the center of my intervention, is basically solidarity finance. Because as you know, in the social and solidarity economy, there are institutions that are financial institutions on their own, and there are others that need the financing from a solidarity perspective. And solidarity finance as well is a key component of it, because it's all about using financial tools to achieve sustainable and equitable development with a long-term vision to basically increase social capital, if we are to sum it up, to summarize it. But unfortunately, the form and the shape that social and solidarity economy has been taking lately has been largely restricted or limited to credit care funds, crowdfunding, mutual saving banks and credit unions, ethical banks. I'm going to enumerate some more. Microcredit and microfinance, and we heard a lot about that now, and I can give as an example the Village Saving and Loan Association, for example, which is somewhat on the largest scale level, trade fairs and festivals for farmers, incubators for the medium and small and medium enterprises, solidarity social services, and other associations, mutual funds, cooperatives, and other kinds of associations. So this is basically what has been defining how people look at social and solidarity economy. And unfortunately, I must say that these are, of course, done with good intentions, with all good intentions. Of course, they leverage collective action, community building, solidarity indeed, and they add up, they build up, they accumulate, but they remain small scale, and they remain not inclusive, not universal, because they are not structural, because they are not systematic, they are not sustainable. And this makes them both tangential and ineffective, because if we are to take the example out of the list that I enumerated, if we are to take the example of microfinance, for example, it is making those that are most vulnerable, most in need, most marginalized, including households and not only individuals, fall into debt traps. They're falling into indebtedness. Whereas the solidarity they are looking for, the protection, the welfare they're looking for should be their right, and should it be something that they have to fall into debt to be able to secure their livelihoods and their well-being. And eventually these prominent forms of social and solidarity economy are replacing the state, in my opinion, and they're providing band-aid to the people, causing social inertia. They're replacing the state, and they're making the state look good, and they're helping the states evade their responsibilities, because it is the responsibility of the state to provide this protection and to create jobs in a structural manner. It is the responsibility of the state first and foremost, and it is the right of the people to get this from their states. And this is an integral part of the social contract, supposedly. So what I'm trying to say is that basically the social and solidarity economy, as we are looking at it, is not taking a rights-based approach. It's basically letting the communities, letting it be. It's comme de laissez-faire, but on the community level. So we're letting the communities support each other, help each other, provide some kinds of debt to each other, and they're being abused often. So we see in Tunisia, in some rural areas, women, for example, have gathered in solidarity and have started to create some crafts, some like I don't know, some like oriental crafts, and they started selling them. And then we eventually found out that the NGOs and NGOs were buying those and were selling them at much higher prices. So this is really not working. And en plus, in addition to that, this is even harming progress. This is even harming progress towards the realization of these structural reforms, the shifts in the development paradigms and in the economic models that we want. This is really harming progress towards that, because what we need is not to create jobs as if it's our responsibilities as NGOs, as actors, activists. It's not our responsibility as communities to create jobs for these people. It is instead the responsibility of the state to shift the economic model to one that is productive, so that jobs can be created in a structural manner on a systemic level. In addition to that, I think Ala has hinted to the fact that, yes, indeed, I had that already in my presentation. The current forms, or the prominent forms, let's call them, of social and solidarity economy are reproducing power dynamics, political dynamics. They're reproducing gender dynamics on the community level. We see, indeed, even if we are to look on the level of tribes, of families, it's gender dynamics and power dynamics are largely governing who gets what and who benefits from those solidarity initiatives in their different forms and shapes. And in cases like Lebanon, for example, a country which suffers from clientelism, sectarianism, crony capitalism, all this complex political economy, basically, they're taking the form of Al-Qadd al-Hassan, which is a microfinance institution that we found out eventually that is basically labeled, or that should be labeled as corruption and money laundering for one of the leading political parties in the country, that is identified as a terrorist group. Al-Bitaqa al-Safra, the yellow card that also, for example, Hezbollah came up with for their community to get medicines from pharmacies for free. So this is a form of social and solidarity economy, but it's basically leveraging and capitalizing on clientelism, and it's basically also reproducing, indeed, the power dynamics, and not only on the state level, but on the level of political parties and faith-based organizations too. Now, instead, the counterfactual, what social and solidarity economy is and how we should be looking at it is basically as a principle around which the financing for development should revolve, a principle around which development effectiveness should revolve, including financing mechanisms for social protection. And the social and solidarity economy, and I'm going to explain this more, but if it is looked at as a principle for financing development and social protection on the macro level, it can make a great alternative to debt, to austerity, to surcharges, to poverty-targeted cash injections, to labor market activation programs, and to all these tangential approaches to development. What do I mean by the principle for financing welfare, let's say, social welfare? It is basically a mix between the Bismarckian welfare state and the Beveridgean welfare state. So tax reforms, okay, can fund what is called self-finance, it can fund the non-contributory social protection schemes. They can be financed or funded by tax. Now, the contributory social protection schemes, they are self-financed. They're self-financed by the contributions. So this combination, that non-contributory or tax-financed schemes that allow the inclusion of the unemployed, the poorest, the informal labor, the refugees, or those that are mainly excluded from social protection schemes. And the contributory revenue, and this is the Beveridgean approach. And the Bismarckian approach, whereby basically contributory revenues are gathered based on this approach of intragenerational redistribution of wealth and of public resources internally, domestically, without necessarily having to resort to external funds and to debt. So this internal redistribution of wealth is, if we are to popularize it like so much, it's basically the richest funding the poorest, those that are healthy funding those and protecting those that are sick, those of working age funding and protecting those who are older persons, like the elderly, or children who cannot work. This is solidarity. If we do tax reforms and if we do contributory social protection schemes, this can be a structural, one example of structural forms of social and solidarity economy, especially for this can balance between the interests of the beneficiaries and the responsibilities of the financing agent, which is basically the state and the society all in all. So basically what I'm trying to call for is to systematize the social and solidarity economy and to make it state-led, because as long as it is not state-led, it cannot be systematic and it cannot be universal so that everybody can benefit from it and so that it can be indeed portrayed and approached as a right for everyone. Now, in addition to, for example, tax reforms, climate finance, for example, that we all are talking about now, this is a form of, or it falls under the principle of solidarity financing. I'm gonna just mention a brief example so that it can make sense to those who may disagree. So for example, when we say that the global countries of the global north who have caused a lot of environmental hazards and emissions should be paying fines and some environmental tax to the countries of the global south, and that the countries of the global south should be getting debt relief because they are not emitting as much, for example, as the countries of the global north. This is one way of global solidarity and of a redistribution of resources between countries and not only within countries. Financial decentralization. Financial decentralization can also be a form. It has to be led by the state and by local governments, but this is a form of solidarity because it leverages some grassroots forms of organization that are supported by the state. And so is the service decentralization through, for example, local and social development centers. These are forms of social and solidarity economy that are state-led, that are owned by the state, but that can also bring communities together and have communities help each other in a systematic way. To mention some tangible examples about social and solidarity economy, not as a principle, but as best practices in different parts of the region that could be generalized, that could be upscaled, and that prove that what I'm trying to call for is basically feasible. We've got sovereign wealth funds, housing trust funds, solidarity equalization funds for aid distribution, and this was the experience in Tunisia for rural women during COVID. Foreign aid funds to support imports, and this is what Yemen is. This is the direction that Yemen is going into. And globally, we all know about the global tax, and this is how we can combat tax evasions from multinational corporations, and the global solidarity funds and the global social protection funds. These all can be upscaled to the macro level to become more systemic. Now, if somebody would say this cannot be taken to that level, no, they can't. They can. We can give an example of the Himat Watan Fund during COVID-19 in Jordan. This is one of the best practices. It is a solidarity fund that Jordan came up with during COVID-19, but that was led by the state. They came up with a specific kind of tax, and they increased contributions, employers' contributions, to feed into that fund to help those most in need, but on a national country level and not on a micro scale level. We could also institutionalize solidarity systems. We do have, I was one of those who voted yes when in the poll we were asked whether we need legal frameworks or not for the social and solidarity economy to be effective and to be implemented. Yes, we do need these. In some countries, like in Tunisia, during COVID times, but correct me if I'm wrong, there was the social and economic solidarity law that was set. So this can be amended and activated. And in countries where such laws do not exist, we can simply refer to success stories in other countries, and we can come up with similar legal frameworks. To wrap up, the social and solidarity economy cannot on its own, the way we are seeing it, cannot be enough. Even if those funds that I mentioned and the tax and the contributory schemes that I mentioned, all these examples, they cannot be enough on their own. Social and solidarity economy can come to complement a shift in the economic model to a more productive model that does not prioritize growth over social justice, and that doesn't prioritize private profits over social welfare, basically. So Basically, yes, a shift. Yeah, I'm about to wrap up, Ala. Sorry. So we need an economic model, and we need a shift in the development paradigm to something that is more equitable, indeed, and to a development model where we have a common welfare, or simply, if we are not able to achieve common welfare, when we have real social welfare and not private welfare or elitist welfare, then comes social and solidarity economy to complement that. And in crisis times, this is most important. But if we do not have those structural reforms, we won't be able to actually have social and solidarity economy meet its purpose. I have a couple of more ideas, but I'm gonna leave them. I'm sure we're gonna receive more questions and I can come in later.
Thank you, Farah. Actually, I don't think that we will have time for more questions because we are already 20 minutes past the session time. Today's insightful session was super exciting. So we are 20 minutes past the time. We discussed an integration between different perspectives on the social and solidarity economy and from different angles, from the work on the local level and the what's happening on different regions, from exciting projects from Maghreb to Lebanon and examples from Tunisia. But most importantly, what can everyone be doing to advance social solidarity economy agenda on a policy level, what the EU can do and what can be done on policy level in each country, and in tax reforms and on labor laws and all the policy advocacy work that can be done to advance social solidarity economy agenda, and how the integration of innovative solutions and the advancement of newly emerged technologies can benefit and can be a bridge to advance social enterprises in their formation and transformation and enhancement. I don't think that we will have time to go through all the questions with the panelists, but I want to thank everyone and to thank the organizers of this event for giving us the chance and for giving me the chance to moderate this super interesting session. I learned a lot, and I believe everyone here learned from one another, and the participants were super engaged in this session. And sorry for not going through all the questions. You can reach out to the organizers and to the fellow panelists for more enriching conversations in the future. The organizers are notifying me to end the session. Let's keep this conversation ongoing after this session, and to advance this agenda for the future days, because in times of crisis, only solidarity holds communities. And let's build an economy that works for everyone and communities that are protected by solidarity. I urge you to check SEEN, to check Restart Maghreb, to check the Solidarity Directory, Dalil Tadamun, to check all the interesting initiatives and to stay connected. Together we can do more. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Shukran.
Ciao. Thanks, everyone.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you very much.